But I need to be honest with you. This sermon, this story that we're going over today, it's about the story of Naaman, is a big reason why I pushed for this sermon series anyway. This is one of my favorite stories in the Bible, and I wasn't going to let someone else do it, right? It's one of my favorite stories, and it's important to me because as the pillars of my faith were beginning to crumble back, 10 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that, as they began to crumble, this was one of the stories that aided in that crumbling. And as the pillars of my faith crumbled and fell, it began to rest on the grace and satisfaction and love of Jesus alone. All right? And this was one of the stories that got me there. So it's one of my favorites now. And it's weird, and so I love it. Right? I just love the story. It's the story of Naaman. So I don't know if you've ever heard this story before, but we'll get into it. And I'm going to help you. Jan read most of the story and earlier, and it's a fascinating one, but I'm going to help you get into it, right? So to get into it properly, you really need to think of the most prideful person you can think of. I used to when I've taught this before, I had people think of like Kanye West. You guys know who Kanye West is? 4 of you. Cool. But Kanye West's life has kind of changed here recently, and he's doing kind of a Jesus thing now, and it's kind of changed. He's still Kanye, and you guys should all listen to Kanye. Believe me. It's good stuff. I guarantee if you've been to a mall in the last 10 years, you've listened to some Kanye. But then I was thinking of of Jake Paul. Has anyone here heard of Jake Paul? You guys don't get to answer. They're laughing. Nobody. Yeah, okay. Your grandkids know who he is. But he's incredibly prideful too. In fact, I don't know if you guys heard about the adpocalypse that happened on YouTube. Jake Paul and his arrogance is what caused that. So that he changed how YouTube serves ads. Think about that in his pride. So think about the most prideful person you can think of, right? Think about that person, and then you can ramp it up a little bit when you think of Naaman. Because Naaman is this incredibly prideful individual. He is the hand of the king of Assyria. He is the second in command. He is the leading general of Assyria. And it's said of him that he never lost a battle. All right, this guy, if he wanted to take over your little province, he would have no problem in taking his armies and just completely sacking you. That is Naaman. He is it. He is amazing, and his king loves him, and everything is wonderful, but he's got a problem. One day he wakes up and he looks at his hand and he goes, what's going on here? And he has leprosy. So he got leprosy. The guy who cannot be stopped, the guy who cannot do anything better than Naaman, suddenly comes down with the disease where no one will touch you or be near you anymore. Suddenly he doesn't have any power over any of that anymore. And you could tell he's mourning it, and he feels in trouble, and he just doesn't know how to function anymore. And then this captured servant girl from Israel says, hey, there's a prophet named Elisha in Israel that could probably heal you. He can definitely heal you, in fact. And he's like, oh, that's great. And so he goes to his king. He goes, King, can I go to Israel and get healed by this prophet? And he's like, oh, yes, of course. Like, I'm about to lose my best general. Like, I need you here. Yes, go. And in fact, take all of this wealth with you. Take all this gold. Take all of this, all these things. Take all these servants with you as you go. And let me write down a note for you. And the note, and I'm paraphrasing, says, from the king of Assyria to the king of Israel, appreciate it if you could heal my servant Naaman. All right? Naaman, right? That's what it said. All right? And so so he has this note, and he begins to go to Israel. He heads to Israel, and I'm desperately trying to get this to work. And he gets there. Now, think about this for a second. You have Naaman, warlord Naaman, who can go anywhere at any time and take over anybody. And he's coming towards Israel with all of this wealth and prestige and servants following behind him. What do you think the king of Israel thinks of that? You think he's happy about it? No. He's probably scared. I mean, just imagine if like some big leader in Brazil goes, you know what? I need a cancer treatment. I'm going to go to New York and get a cancer treatment. And he hops aboard one of his aircraft carriers, and he has the planes and all of that and all the battleships like just sailing right up to New York. I don't think it would go well, right? Like that. That's like, you have to picture that as he's coming in. But you got to notice what's happening with Naaman. Naaman is thinking in the old way of things. Notice, he thinks he's going to purchase his salvation. He thinks he's going to purchase being healed. He's got the full weight of Assyria behind him. He thinks he's going to purchase it. And when he arrives, what you got to put in your mind, because I think when Jan read this, and when the first couple times I read it, I pictured like, okay, it's like Naaman, and then like Jedediah, and then Frank. And, and they're just walking in, and they got some like money bags like over here, right? And that's it. No. You guys remember that movie Aladdin? Remember Aladdin? All right, I'll let you do it. Like that's that movie Aladdin. Remember in that scene with Prince Ali where the genie makes it look like Aladdin has all the money and all the wealth, and they're like, make way for Prince Ali, right? And they're singing along, and he's like riding an elephant. He's got the shiny teeth, and there's all these people like carrying these giant dishes of money and wealth, and they're like scooping it out at people along the sides. Like, you got to picture that when you think of Naaman coming off. There's like people in the back like firing fireworks off, as he's like coming in here, He's coming with all the prestige and wealth of Assyria as he's going. And he goes up to the king of Israel, who's probably a little nervous. Naaman, warlord here, with people shooting off fireworks behind him, right? And he gets up there, and he hands him the note, and the note says, I appreciate it if you could heal my servant Naaman. Now, how would he read that? He's like, is this a threat? Like, I can't heal you of leprosy, buddy. Like, we don't have like magic water over here. We don't have any of that stuff. I can't do that. And he immediately becomes like scared, and he rips his clothing like Hulk Hogan did in the 80s. Right? You guys get that reference? Finally. And so he rips his clothes, and he's scared because what happens if he can't heal him? Are they using that as an excuse to take them over now? It's all really scary. So Elisha hears that the king has ripped his clothes. How awful, right? It's like, and he goes, tell him to come over here. Tell him to come over here. So now, picture this. Naaman, with all of his entourage and all that stuff, and the people shooting off fireworks in the back and all that, they now go out to the outskirts of town to go to the house of Elisha. And he gets up there, and again, remember, it's not Jedediah and Frank, it's that all of them. And he knocks on the house, right? It's like Prince Ali is knocking on this house. Now, if this guy came and visited you, you'd probably like, oh, someone important's at the door, right? And you run up and you picture it. That's how you guys run, isn't it? So you would run over and get it. Like if the vice president came over there, you would go answer the door. You wouldn't go like, oh, well, well, Dale is cleaning my hot water heater right now. Why don't you go answer the door, Dale? Right? No, you wouldn't do that. But what does Elisha do? Did you notice? So Naaman, with everyone behind him, including Frank shooting off fireworks in the background, they're all there, and Elisha sends his servant to go out there. What a slap in the face to Naaman, right? This guy's used to, when he says jump, people jump. And Elisha's in there watching Murray Povich, right? Like he's not even standing up and going out to the door. And Naaman sees that the messenger comes up to him and he's like, hey, what I want you to do is what Elisha told me to tell you is to go wash in the Jordan River 7 times. All right, for those of you who remember the story, how did Naaman handle that? Was it well? He's like, oh, that makes sense. I appreciate you coming out here, Dale, or whatever his name is, right? I appreciate you coming out here and talking to me and telling me about this, no. And he goes, nope, that's not going to happen. He's like angry, and he's like, do you see all of this? We even brought these people with these giant things of gold and all this wealth and all that stuff. And you tell me to go wash in the river? All right, so the quote that I have here is from 2 Kings 5:11 through 12, and it's from the Voice translation. It's a different translation, and I really like how they rendered this conversation. You can sense, the frustration is dripping from Naaman. He goes, what is this? I came here thinking that Elisha would come outside, call upon the Eternal One, his God, and that Elisha's hands would pass over all my sores, heal my skin disease, not the waters of the Jordan River. The Abida and the far rivers in Damascus are greater rivers than all of the rivers in Israel combined. So why couldn't I just go bathe in those rivers and be healed? I mean, what's he saying here? Like he's saying, oh, I wanted Elisha to come out, turn the TV off, come out, put the Pope hat on, put the white robe with the green thing and the rope around it on, come out, and I want you to wave your hand over, say some stuff in Hebrew that I don't understand, maybe make me laugh for a second, and say all these big important things so that I could be healed. And you send Dale out here? You send the servant out? What are you doing? And then you tell me to wash in the Jordan River? Like, listen, Christians in the room, we have this picture of the Jordan River that is much holier than it deserves because it's like, oh, John the Baptist. Jesus was baptized in the Jordan River, right? Like we have this picture, and there's all these. We could go over. It's Sunday. Well, it's Sunday night over there now, but like 12 hours ago, I guarantee there was coach bus after coach bus filled with Americans of a certain age. And they all go over there, and they're all getting baptized again in the Jordan River and buying little bottles of it and all that stuff and buying little rocks and all those things. And you're like, oh, the Jordan River. That's not how it's thought about. That's just our history, right? That we think of the Jordan River. You can tell Naaman does not think that because it's just a little river. It'd be like Elisha going, well, choose one of the little canals around here in Port St. Lucie and you can get healed by going in one of those. Like, which one? Just choose one without an alligator in it, right? Like, that's like, you're like, no, that's not going to happen. Like, at least let me go over to one of the nice beaches, not even Jensen Beach. Like, let's go up to down to Miami or down to Daytona. So much better beaches, right? Like that's like we think about that, and that's how he thinks. Like the Jordan is only like this deep. It's not a big river, and it's not even all that clean, you know. Like, and he's just like, no, this is ridiculous. And then like I don't know who else, Jedediah or whoever was with him. He's like, we're all here still. It sure would be sad to walk all the way home. like Like we all got out here. Frank's almost out of fireworks. You see him over there? Like he's been firing those things off all day. Like, why don't you just go into the river? Just try it out. What's the worst that could happen? You know, like he wants them to make this huge deal. He wants this huge thing to happen, right? But what's interesting when we look at the Bible, when we look in the scriptures, what seems to be happening is that we see that God works in the small things. He works in the broken things. I mean, think about every story. Like, the nation of Israel is a nothing nation when he takes them out of Egypt. You know? Like, that's, yeah, he does. And the thing is we often get angry and discouraged. You know, we hear about all the good things, big things that God can do, miraculous healings. Look, Jesus walked on water. Look at him expand his kingdom and causing all to believe. And we expect God to do those big things too. Heal my brother, save my agnostic cousin, enlarge our church. And we get angry when it doesn't happen. We get angry. And listen, we say this all the time. I've heard lots of people in churches, it's like, God's going to do big things here. Right? We say it all the time. God is doing these giant things. And the thing is, when it doesn't happen to us, when we don't see it, we get angry. And I think we hide our anger with discouragement. That we internalize our anger and we get discouraged. We want what Naaman wants. We want all the pomp and circumstance and all the Hebrew words we don't know what they mean to wave over us and fix the problems. So Jedediah is telling Naaman, it's like, Frank's almost out of fireworks. Why don't we just go into the water? And then you got to picture this. Picture this. Because all those people that came with Naaman, they're still there. It's not just Naaman by himself in one of the little canals around here, you know, getting ready to bathe. Like, that's not what he's doing. Everyone is there with him, standing on the corner, like, watching him, you know, like, well, when are you going to dip down and do it? Let's chop, chop, right? Like, and think about how humiliating that would be for him. So Naaman's like, all right, so 7 times? He's like, okay. And he's like, well, let's give this a whirl. And he's like, because remember, it's only like this deep. So he's like, 1. And then like looks, you know, 2. You know, like, and then everyone gets the picture as they're on the side, you know, and they all start counting with them, like 3, you know, and I'm sure he like looks and he's like, oh, all right, 4, and then 5, and then I'm sure after the 6th one, you know, he comes up and he's like, and he's like, nothing's changed, you know, and then he goes 7, and he looks at his hands. And did anyone catch how it described what his hands and his skin looked like? Look like a baby, like a child, right? Isn't that weird language? That's strange language to be described like a child. Like, easy there, guys. You know, like that's weird. But think about what it's saying. It's saying something deeper than just a skin like a child. It says that he was like new creation. Like, to use Christian language, like he was reborn. You see that? And so he comes out and it's like he's reborn again. The resurrection happens to him. Then he comes out and he's clean and he's like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. It couldn't be any better than this. All this, and what's amazing is that this redemption and this recovery and this resurrection happens to him around something so small. And we see that God works in the small things, in the broken things like Naaman. And we see that in our own life too. I mean, look at how God works in the creation with us now. He works through baptism. Let me be honest with you. This is just normal water. At best, it goes through a Brita filter. It doesn't here, though, I'm telling you. What we do is we go over to the sink and turn it on. Maybe we'll put it in the microwave to warm it up so the baby doesn't cry, right? Like it's just normal water. It's water. God comes to us in the normal thing. Like this, God comes to us in this too. This is just really kind of poor quality bread. And have you ever drank a lot of the Mogan David? God comes to us in the broken things, right? Like he does. And it comes to us in the normal thing. And then when you look at the very cross itself, I mean, think about what the cross represents. Think what the cross represents of humanity, of the people that would invent such a heinous way to end somebody's life so that they would suffocate and be tortured all the way till they would die. The heinous brokenness of a group of people that would be willing to create that, and God went there. And you think about all the heinous ways that we still choose to kill people off today. The heinous ways that we say, oh, it's just killing people, right? And God went to the most heinous, broken part of ourselves and decided to clean us up and redeem us there. And make us born again so that we're like children, right? Some of you are like, yeah, my skin, not so childlike. But we're born again to make us better. So then Naaman goes back to the prophet. He goes back to the prophet, and this time the prophet actually answers the door, right? Like he actually answers the door, and he comes up, and Naaman believes. He believes, he's like, I believe in the one true God of who you say he is, Naaman. I believe in him and him alone. But I got a problem. And this is off the script that we read earlier, but I left it off for a reason. Because this is the part that changed me. This is what it says, not the picture of Prince Ali. In this, he says this, I believe in the God that you're talking about, Elisha, but I got a problem. In this matter, may the Lord pardon your servant. When my master goes into the house of Rimmon to worship there, leaning on my arm, and I bow myself in the house of Rimmon. When I bow myself in the house of Rimmon, the Lord pardon your servant in this matter. What's he saying there? It's a weird phrasing. Basically, his job as second to the king is that he helps. Part of his job is for him to help his king worship another god. And he's going, Elisha, what do I do about this? I don't believe any of this anymore. What do I do? Let me ask you a question. What would your advice be? You can tell Naaman's completely ready to walk, right? He totally believes all that stuff. What would your advice be to him? What would the most righteous Christian blogger's advice be? Change jobs, right? Like walk away from it. Like over there, you don't need that anymore. Like that. And sometimes we say that to ourselves. I'm not going to be involved in the world around us, right? Like sometimes we put that pressure on us. Does anyone know what Elisha tells him? The very next verse. Go in peace. Listen, sometimes the world is just hard. Sometimes your situation at home, at work, in your whatever you guys do during the day is difficult. And you can't purge all of the nastiness out of it. And you don't know where to look and don't know where to go anymore. You don't know which way to go. And all you want to do is like, I just need to get rid of all this in my life and I'll be okay. And the Lord's prophet is saying to you, it's okay. Go in peace. The Lord will be with you in that situation, in every one that you ever encounter. There is not a time where the Lord will not be with you. He will be with you all the time. Even when you're doing something that you're like, I just can't abide by this anymore, God is still with you. And He's still with every one of you here. In the hard times of the daily life where you have to make difficult decisions and you don't know what to do, the Lord is with you. And the Lord's prophet is telling you the same thing that he's saying to Naaman. Go in peace and bring the peace of Yahweh to everywhere you go. And I think that's good news. And we'll end right there.